You are live. All right.
Apparently we
Apparently,
are.
that's what it says. Do we want to do a check here?
All right. We
Oh, I
see
see some
that,
numbers.
yeah, the numbers are going up really quickly. Hello, everybody. Here we are in beautiful Boulder, Colorado today, ready to deliver to you a today's webinar. And we're going to give everybody a few more seconds because we have a really long list of folks that signed up, and normally everybody begins to sign up at 11.
Gratifying to see those kind of numbers.
Absolutely,
thank including, you. I looked at the list. There's some folks from Russia, at least that registered. Don't know if you're there, but if you are, welcome. Welcome to Colorado, USA. I noticed there were some people from Germany on the list. A lot of you have Gmail email accounts, so I don't know where you're from, but we assume.
May very well be from all over the place. And
yep.
We are thankful for your
staying up late in some cases.
Exactly,
middle of the night.
In the middle of the night. Thank you, all of you, for being there. And we're going to get going in just a couple of seconds because the number's still climbing up.
You know what we should not do is hit the table. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. So we're not going to hit the table, so the cameras don't shake. So why don't we go ahead and introduce ourselves, even though everybody knows us by now.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, well, just in case.
Okay.
Right?
I'm Richard Ron, and both Gerard and I are co-principals with the Leonardo Group Americas. So we're should we call ourselves a boutique lean consulting company specializing in mixed model line design and mixed model material management, and also lean hospital work. That's been a big part of our work in the last few years, or last decade even.
Yeah, well, sounds good. Yeah, you folks know us, and you can always take a look at our bios on our website. So why waste time with that? So with that, I think we've given enough time for everybody to sign up. And what we'd like to do today is to introduce our webinar. Should we go ahead and go to?
Yeah, so you won't be watching us. We'll just turn on the presentation and you'll be hearing us, and then we'll come back to you at the end of the webinar and say goodbye.
Yeah, and today's topic has to do with a few things we have learned in our work with Toyota. We're lucky enough that we teach workshops at Toyota Material Handling USA in partnership with them. We consult with them, and they have been very gracious and very generous in sharing with us what they do, how they do it. You will see that there are no, what can I say, earth-shattering secrets, but some things that to us were sort of surprises, and that we thought, well, this is something worth sharing with folks, and also knowing that many of you will going to attend our workshop in Indiana in 4 or 5 weeks from now. These are some of the things that you should expect to see. So let's go ahead here and go for a second. There it is. Let me see. Oh, there, no. There we are. Everybody can see this window right now. You should see right now our first page, our title page. Yes, there you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
It's terrible. Having to speak more than one language is a terrible thing.
Yeah.
So,
D'accord.
Indeed. So, 10 secrets that we learned at Toyota Material Handling. And so let's see if we can make this advance. Oh, I know. We need to be here, I think, to make it advance, right? Yeah. Yep. So hopefully you're seeing this right now. And just a few words about ourselves. We have been at it for quite some time. We started in the early 90s. As a matter of fact, Richard and I started to work on this business pretty much within months of each other. We are based out of Boulder, Colorado, but we have also our division, our European division, based in Munich. We deliver our services in 9 languages as last count. We wrote a few books, and our first one was The Fundamentals of Flow Manufacturing, and the one that it is our most current one. It's a complete guide to mixed model line design, which everybody gets a copy of when they attend our workshops. We also wrote a series of books called the In the OR series, OR Operating Room series, of total of 5 books. And we do some work with our friends at our material handling, including the workshop that some of you will attend in 5 weeks.
Okay, so just some background information for you in terms of our involvement with Toyota. We've been going there for the last 6 years or so and teaching a quarterly workshop. Now, just to be clear, we're not teaching this workshop to Toyota, although we're confident in talking to them and they're being familiar with what we're teaching, that we're compatible with what they're actually doing. That would be a plus, right? But we're actually inviting people from the outside to come in. So it's a public class, but they've been generous enough to open their doors to us and host these classes over the years. So that's been great because it's great for the students. You get to not only learn this important methodology that we teach, mixed model line design and material management, but you also get to take 2 Toyota plant tours and spend time with the Toyota folks to ask Toyota specific questions, because we're not there to represent the Toyota production system explicitly or represent Toyota ourselves. But the Toyota folks have just been super generous over the years in participating with us to make it a really amazing experience.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, in this picture that you see on the screen, you can probably see Richard there in the background. And this is the area where we do their rotunda. This is where we do all their hands-on exercises with the students, and also where we have lunches and breaks. And during lunch, the generous folks at Toyota come in and do a Q&A session, which is, again, very generous of them. And also they basically share what they do and how they do it. Right.
So this whole presentation is based on things that we've noticed and learned that, at least initially, seem to fly in the face of what we've been teaching or our understanding up to that point, and that we wanted to share with you. So these 10 secrets are what we'll be covering in this presentation. Now, when we say secret, let's be clear. There aren't really any, well, there may be some real secrets. So we're saying real secrets versus self-secrets. There may be some real secrets. In other words, proprietary information that they don't share. And we don't know what those are, of course, because they are real secrets. I'm going to make this a little bigger. Yeah. Okay. All right. Check it out. All right. Is that an improvement? We'll see. Go check it out. But so no doubt there are some real secrets, but they're not sharing those with us. But there are also these self-secrets. So people hear about Toyota or Lean and they think, well, what is the secret sauce? What is the thing that makes Toyota different, or things whereas other companies try to implement Lean and are less successful? I wouldn't say anyone's a failure, right? But there's greater success and lesser success. And so what is this greater success that Toyota seems to have? But the thing is that these secrets are really what we might call self-secrets. So here's the analogy I like to use. You can look through a window like this little girl in the picture, and you can look through the window and see the outside. You see the trees and the squirrels running around and the rabbits and the leaves blowing in the wind. But you can also, if you just change your field of focus or just change your paradigm, you can actually see yourself. So this picture window is also a mirror. So imagine you're trying to explain this phenomena, right? That this picture window is not just a window to the outside, it's a window to yourself. You're trying to explain that to someone and they just don't get it, right? They're not able to change their field of view. They just don't understand what you're saying. That's a little bit what a self-secret is like. So it's not hidden. It's not hidden in any way whatsoever, but you have to be able to see it, right? And change your perspective. So that's I think what we're talking about here when we use the word secret. Not really secret, but again, it's hidden not because it's actually hidden, but because we can't see it clearly.
We can see it. The reflection in the window is preventing us from seeing it. So with that, let's go ahead and move on to the some definitions that we want to discuss. First of all, when we talk about success, and remember, we're focusing primarily on materials management, which is the topic of our next workshop, live workshop, better said. What defines success? And what we're going to propose here doesn't have to be your definition of success, but there has to be some metric, something you're chasing that says, we have arrived, we are there. And of course, we're going to propose certain metrics like shortages. What's the goal? Well, it should be 0 shortages, right? Inventory turns. What is the right number of inventory turns? Well, hard to say, right? Because we have worked with companies with turns in the very high 2 digits and companies that have turns in the very low single digits. And to say, like an old client of ours said once, well, I want to get to 45 turns. How many are you at now? 1. Well, that's not going to happen immediately. You should be very happy to go from 1 to 2, from 2 to 4, and to continue advancing as long as you're moving in the right direction. Elimination of non-value added work. All of it all at once? No, but moving in the right direction. Accuracy of data. And their accuracy of data, how do we measure that? Well, how about inventory record accuracy? Pick one metric that you can sink your teeth in and move forward. Sustainability. Once you make progress with a specific improvement, how do you know you're sustaining that? And then making sure that, and where it says people issues there, refers to making sure that people are following the right routines, the right disciplines. And this is, I have to say, since I do a lot of my work with hospitals, this is one of the struggles that I have with my friends in hospitals. And those of you who are in healthcare, please go ahead and give me a shout out in the chat box. Let me know. And this is one of my biggest struggles in materials implementations in hospitals, where I have a hard time getting people to do their part when it comes to, for example, replenishing Kanban containers. And we'll get a chance to talk about that in other webinars.
Okay, so this one has to do, I think, a lot, and we'll get to it with some of the people issues we just talked about. But first thing we noticed was we kind of assumed incorrectly that because something could be automated and because automation could give you a higher level of, say, predictability, repeatability, accuracy, that Toyota would have eliminated paper as much as possible. But that was just not the case. So let's take a look at what they've actually done in terms of the use of paper. So first thing was they're still using, and we're talking here about Toyota material handling. So there may be differences at other Toyota factories, but at the place we're familiar with, they're still using paper Kanban cards. So when they deliver a bin of material to the point of use, that bin has a card laying on top of the parts, printed on paper. And they don't reuse these cards, by the way. They just simply reprint them when you need another one. And that card, by the way, has a serial number on it. So they're able to track them. Yeah,
and that to us was a surprise because, and even when we gave this presentation at APICS, we were asked, well, or someone made the point that, well, all that could be fixed by a simple electronic signal. Yes, you're not telling me anything I haven't heard before. I'm just telling you what they do. And by the way, they're better at it than anybody else in the world.
Okay, so not just Kanban cards, but also each area, each department, or each cell or team would have its own specific metrics, key performance indicators, and those are also maintained on paper. And I remember, similar to your story, Gerard, I went on a lean tour a few years ago, and the comment was the same, talking about metrics. They said, boy, your charts look, this is one of the people on the tour, said, boy, your charts look awfully funky and homemade. unprofessional. Why don't you just put a little laptop computer there, or a flat screen, or a tablet or something, and really make it look professional and clean, your charts? And the tour guide said, well, yeah, we could do that, but then you're disconnecting the people from the data, and you're no longer asking them to be kind of engaged and involved. And so I think, back to my comment about people, one of the benefits of using paper is that people have to relate to it, have to handle it, and therefore they're involved in the process. So sure, you could automate the Kanban process completely, have completely no human intervention at all, right? Automatically sends a signal. You could do that. But Toyota apparently has chosen not to do that with Kanban cards, not to do that with how they're tracking metrics. Have people pick up a pencil and update that graph.
Mm-hmm. And the same goes with the central control room, which, by the way, they have changed the name of that room multiple times. Now they call it the adrenaline room, right? And it is a room where all the different metrics from all the different departments are posted, and that is the room where they hold their sunrise and sunset meetings that are attended by the company president. And again, 15-minute standing room, and the PIC, person in charge, steps up to the board he or she is in charge of, and explains the reasons why the metrics are what they are, which they were just updated by hand. As a matter of fact, there's a running joke at Toyota Material Handling that a promotional comes with a box of crayons. And that's what they say.
Yeah. So interesting. I mean, this just reinforces the fact that it's not a question of budget. It's not a cost-saving measure, particularly.
Yeah, it's not that they don't have any money, right?
They have the money, and they actually spend it.
Yeah.
So they spend it. Apparently, Toyota spends more on IT than their competitors. But they choose to spend it in certain areas, and this is an area where they don't spend it. They prefer to have people really actively, manually engaged in this, which I guess makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Seems to work.
So let's go to secret number 2.
Okay, is there a lot of handling?
Yeah, a discussion we had, we continue to have with folks that are novices that are beginning to come on board with mixed material management is, well, if we set up a Kanban container at the point of use, and another set of containers in the supermarket, and we receive in bulk at the warehouse, isn't there too much handling? And there are very good reasons why we set up this the material management system the way we do, is primarily because of the ability to provide advance notice to a shortage. But let's talk about what they do and why they do it.
Okay, so in terms of handling, yes, we have a certain number of locations, right, which increases, in theory, the amount of handling you do, but also their replenishment cycle is very short, at least compared to what we were used to. Because I remember back, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, the thought was, boy, if you're replenishing too often, that's a lot of non-value added activity on the part of the material handlers. But the replenishment cycle at Toyota Material Handling is 37 minutes. That means every 37 minutes, the tugger is going to come by. Now, the tugger's not replenishing every bin every 37 minutes, but they will be coming by and replenishing the ones that they received a signal for in a previous cycle. So that's a lot. I think it's 12 cycles per day, right, per working day. That seemed to us to be a lot.
Yeah, but the number 12 is a secret number for them. And the reason is because number 12 is the one that allows the highest number of multiples to be able to sequence materials within a working day. And they have been at it for decades, looking at this, and they replenish on the clock. As a matter of fact, there's a countdown clock at the supermarket. Every 37 minutes, a train departs, and they have 11 different trains, right? 11 different
Something
routes.
Like that, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember the number 11. I'm sure they changed it by now. We were there, 3 weeks ago? I'm sure they changed it. They are very active folks. So 37-minute replenishment time. They also use a decoupled delivery strategy. And as you will learn when you take our workshop, there are two ways of replenishing materials. One is a coupled strategy, where the person that picks delivers, or decoupled, where you have a picking a picking group and a delivery group. They use a decoupled delivery strategy, where they have a picking group and a delivery group staffing the delivery routes and the tuggers primarily.
Okay, so most of this this replenishment cycle involves delivering full bins, picking up empty bins, and also picking up Kanban cards. So that's part of the same cycle. So I don't know what the percentage is exactly, but it's high. Maybe 60% or more of the items that they consume are delivered via a Kanban method, meaning with a bin and a quantity and a card.
Yeah, and by the way, this particular Toyota plant is still very keen on Kanban. We're beginning to have some of our higher volume customers, line designs, migrating a little bit away from Kanban, but these folks are very keen on Kanban. Approximately 75% Kanban, and another large percentage of items they sequence, and they sequence each one with an individual sequencing card that is a letter-sized piece of paper. And when you think about what they make, fork trucks, just think about the big stuff, right? It's going to be sequenced. Engines, transmissions, all the large items are sequenced one by one with an individual sequencing card, and those are tracked very closely.
Okay, and Tony, I noticed a question here in the browser. It said, did you mention 12 times a day? Yes. So they're running one shift, and they've divided that day into 12 cycles. And that's where the 37 minutes comes from. So 37 times 12 is the working day.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, that's exactly how they calculated the 37 minutes, by taking their day and divided by 12. And again, 12 because it's divisible by 1, by 2, by 3, by 4, by 6, by 12.
Okay.
That's the reason.
Now, the Toyota vision. Now, why are they doing this so often? Well, part of their vision is one-by-one production for Toyota, the Toyota production system. One-by-one production. So zero defects, one-by-one production, respect for people. So one by one would simply mean in the extreme or most pure example, you consume one piece. I'm talking about raw material here, right? One bolt, you replace one bolt. Well, that's not going to happen anytime in our lifetimes probably, but they want to move in that direction of very small quantities, moved frequently. So, frequent deliveries, small quantities, that's their philosophy. So anything that moves them in that direction, they're favorably inclined to do, and recommendations that move away from that vision statement, they're inclined not to do.
Exactly. Now, I have to say one more thing about the 12 times a day, and I'll move on. And one thing we have discovered over our experience, and we actually tested it with simulation, is that the best way to protect yourselves against shortages at the line, to make the system the most robust, is with delivery frequency, not with inventory. So, moving on.
Okay, outside suppliers are connected.
Yes, they actually do a substantial amount of work to bring their suppliers on board, and to partner with the suppliers is really remarkable. One thing is to talk about it, one thing is to see it. Toyota, this particular plant has their own, let me repeat that, their own milk runs. They have their own trucks, go to suppliers, and they have a number. Do you remember their number, Richard? How many different milk runs?
How many different routes?
Yeah, how many different routes?
Boy, it was like 8 or something like
routes,
that.
Yeah. Yes. It's not that they go around the entire country, but
12 we say
cover 12 routes in the Midwest.
Yeah, and they go from the central Indiana. They go all the way up to Minnesota. They go all the way down to Georgia.
Yeah,
on these.
Yeah.
So it's quite a an amazing wide area that they cover.
And it's been, they pay for the freight unless you miss it. If you miss the delivery, right, if you miss the milk run, they will, you have to pay for your own freight. But then again, this is something that was not implemented in a day. They've been at it for well over a decade, and I say a decade because they spent the first decade tuning out their own system, and they claim that is their key to their high inventory turns. They have very high inventory turns. As a matter of fact, when they told us their inventory turns, remember their number, and we said, "Oh, that's very high."
Well, no, I said, well, that's okay, but that's not that great.
Yeah.
Annual turns. And they said, oh, no, not annual. That's our monthly turns.
Mm-hmm.
So
it is, they do a decent job.
Okay. One more comment too on outside suppliers. They do have suppliers beyond just the Midwest, right? They have suppliers in Japan. I mean, their own sister plant is sending engines and larger things. So that's a whole nother area of their supply chain, which is really interesting because they're also running that in more or less a just-in-time fashion from Japan, but with a 4 to 6 week kind of pipeline that they have to manage. So they're not shipping monthly quantities from Japan. They're shipping weekly quantities or smaller in combined shipping containers. So these shipping containers coming from Japan don't have a month's worth or 6 weeks of quantity. They have, for the next shorter time period, and then they have to, of course, break it down and put away as part of the job that they do.
Yeah, and in that discussion about combining shipments is something that we discuss in class, and that we show how you can still do the weekly shipment, but in smaller quantities because you do combination shipments.
Yep. Okay.
Now, in this one, it has a little bit of humor for Richard and I because we spend the first few years of our career bad-mouthing MRP and ERP, and we have since then atoned, and we realize, of course, that MRP, ERP are absolutely necessary if you're going to run anything that resembles a proper business. And when it comes to specifically Toyota, they actually use MRP and ERP to feed their Kanban system. And this is something that is only recommended for advanced users. Why? Because their Kanban numbers are dynamic. Again, they don't change, and normally they don't change day by day, but they use MRP to feed a Kanban system that we asked what is the algorithm that they use, and they politely declined to show us the secret sauce there. But it is based on MRP, feeds this Kanban system, and every time a card comes from the floor, is scanned, the system reads it and decides whether to add another card, whether to delete a card, and whether or not to move. So every card is serialized and scanned when it comes back into what they call the scanning office.
Okay, so what this means then is that for any given cycle, the system itself, and remember, MRP is able to look into the future because it has a master schedule, right, bill of material, and that's what MRP does. So for every cycle, when that card comes back, what happens is the system's determining whether to reprint that card, the cards are reprinted, or to put that card on ice, or freeze it or put it to sleep for a certain number of days because demand is going down, or to actually take it out of circulation altogether, remove it from the system, or to even add an additional card if demand is going up. Now, they're always moving materials in full containers. So really what's changing is the number of bins. They're not changing the quantity.
The quantity itself. It doesn't go from 44 to 33.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're adding a card or a bin, and they're removing a card or a bin based on being able to look into the future. Now, this is something that we always always taught people that they needed to do. But without a system like this, it's hard,
Yeah.
right, to manage this manually.
Well,
We
how
have
long have
thousands
we
of
been?
parts.
How long have we been talking about the need to have a Kanban manager? They were able to automate the Kanban manager, right?
Right. So aside from Toyota's proprietary algorithms, right, that they've developed, because this is something they wrote themselves, there are outside suppliers that actually provide a similar kind of capability. Loop Supply Systems, you can do a Google search on them, is one of them that we've heard of and had some communication with.
Yeah.
So haven't used their software, but we know that they do something very similar to that. And
Yeah, we're not trying to sell you their software. Just take a look at what they do. We were positively impressed, and frankly, first time we've been positively impressed by a software in this arena. The next one, automation, right? If you are Toyota and you are as rich as they are, why don't you automate everything, right? And as a matter of fact, one thing that'd be very interesting when you come with us to the workshop and you go and take the tours is that first they're going to give you a little welcome tour of their rotunda and show you all the products they make, including the beautiful AGVs they make. So you would expect to go into the plant and see their AGVs everywhere. And you know what? They're actually used pretty sparingly because unless they can absolutely justify the automation, they don't. And you will see some AGVs being used, but for stuff that had been justified and that is so very clearly necessary, like the engines, they move the engines using AGVs.
Right. And, part of my thinking about their level of automation in this particular factory has to do with the level of complexity that they have to deal with, because they have over 50 models on their main assembly line, different models, and really thousands of options and configurations. And so to be able to automate something like that, probably there's a little bit of a challenge just in being able to do that because of all the differences or the selections that happen on a unit by unit basis. You might think of an automotive plant like they have one down in Georgetown, Kentucky, making the Camrys. You might think of that as being high mix, but it's not compared to this factory.
Not compared to this factory.
And so you'll see probably a higher level of automation in those factories with material delivery because it's much more repetitive. Yeah. In this case, people just have to be making decisions much more frequently.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, yesterday we published a little article, more like a blog commenting on an article about automation. And automation is coming. Automation will be a fact of life, and you will be designing, you future line designers or current line designers, you will be designing automated lines. But for those of you who are getting started or are redesigning a line, we would strongly recommend that you take automation cautiously. Don't start there. Now, one thing we are seeing is that even tuggers now can be converted into self-driving vehicles. Even Ford trucks can be converted into self-driving vehicles, and we will see more and more of that.
Okay, it's next one. How does a fork truck maker use fork trucks? So that's a good question, right? They're making them, but I think it would be instructive to see how the maker of fork trucks uses them within their own factory.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we wanted to take a look at that. And surprise, there's been a movement afoot. I remember it's actually quite a few years ago now, Dell Computer down in Texas, in Austin, built a factory with an explicit goal of eliminating the need for fork trucks on the factory floor. And I think that's been a kind of a movement afoot of trying to do that. And for a variety of reasons. Fork trucks are dangerous. Right? Yeah, I mean, they're dangerous. They're expensive. They go too fast, maybe. Mm-hmm. They're not very flexible in terms of what they can move. So what we've seen is, surprise, they do use fork trucks, but on an exception basis, pretty much, in this factory. In other words, they try not to, but these are big, they have big, heavy items that do need to be moved. And so you will see not on a regular continual basis, but you will see fork trucks within the aisles, right, inside the factory floor.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they're using them outside of the production areas, try to keep them outside of the production areas, but still in the same building. They have very large and heavy shipping containers coming in, like from Japan, for example, that need to be moved, etc.
And you will see them quite a bit on the docks, moving all the heavy stuff, and primarily all the big crates that come from overseas. And they do have an explicit goal of having fork trucks never move around on empty forks. And you see they're very good at that. You will rarely see fork trucks on empty forks unless it's one of their products that they're driving towards the
right. So I guess a common
dock.
sense, what we see is a common sense approach to the use of fork trucks, and not try to make it a religion where we will never have them if we need them.
Yeah.
But pretty sensible use of them is what we see.
Yeah, they're not very dogmatic. Well, this is also an interesting one because the first time we learned about it, it kind of flew in the face of what we considered common sense, and that is you have more than one Kanban container, say 2 Kanban containers. When a Kanban container is empty, you send a signal back for replenishment, right? That's common sense. Well, what they do is, first of all, this idea of the 2-bin system is not what they follow, and it's a multi-bin system, and the operator, associate as they call them, is expected to send the signal on first unit. When they pull the first unit from the Kanban bin, that is when the Kanban signal is sent.
Yeah. So why are they doing that? Well, let me give you a little case history story of why this would be appropriate and why you may want to avoid this. Actually, it's a decision you're going to have to make. I remember I visited a factory in the Midwest. I think they were up in Michigan, and they had They were doing some welding of fairly large parts, and so they had wire baskets of these welded parts. And I noticed when they pulled one of these baskets, they would take a card off the top and turn it in for to go back to the welding department to be to fill another bin. And I hadn't seen that before. And I said, why are you doing that? And they said, well, this is how we set up a Kanban system. And I said, well, that's not what we teach. We teach you let it go empty, and then you would signal. Where did you learn this? And they said, well, we learned it from Bob. Well, where's Bob? Is he here? Oh, no, Bob doesn't work here anymore. Okay, so I can't ask Bob, but where did Bob work before he came to your factory? And they said, oh, he worked for Nippon Denso. Okay, so Bob worked for a high-volume Japanese manufacturer where the practice was to pull the card when the first piece is pulled. Now, here's the problem with that. When you pull the first piece, the card, and signal for replenishment, it could be that first bin is still not empty when that full bin arrives, right? Because you've already signaled for replenishment. So the 2-bin methodology doesn't work anymore. You would have to have space for at least 3 bins. Right, because that could happen. And at this company in Michigan, that's exactly what was happening. So I said, these are big baskets. Where do you could have another full one, and this one still has parts. What do you do with it? And they said, oh, that's the purpose of this overflow area. So they showed me an overflow area, part of the factory floor in a cage that was big, lot of square footage used for overflow. So if you have that challenge, you might want to stick with a 2-bin system or wait till the container is empty strategy.
Yeah.
In the case of Toyota, however, they're pulling it because they're consuming this material on a regular basis. They're accommodating more than 2 bins in terms of their storage space.
I don't think they have any case of a 2-bin system. They calculate, and this is again one of the things we will teach you when you come to class, calculate an on-hand inventory target and divide that by the standard bin size. And that will give you 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 bins, and that is what you plan for.
Okay.
Talking about
inventory, right?
Inventory plan, let's talk about how much inventory is planned. For those of you who are getting started, this old rule of thumb is not a bad rule of thumb. It's not a bad place to start for those of you who are starting. 1 day, you see 1, 3, 10, 1 day at the line, 3 days in the supermarket, 10 days in the at the warehouse. That is not a bad place to start. However, if you leave it there forever, that means you have not embraced a culture of continuous improvement like these folks do. They actually focus on the number of hours, very few hours at the workstation. I think the number is 4 hours at the workstation, right, Richard?
I can't remember.
Yeah,
but it is measured in hours. And now 1, 3, and 10, that's 1 day, right? 3 days, 10 days. That's not bad. It depends on where you are today. So just 1, 3, and 10 will give you annual inventory turns in the 15 to 20 range, something like that, which is not too shabby if today you're at 3.
Exactly.
Right? That'd be great.
Yeah.
But as you go through, as Gerard said, over time, you want to continuously improve that. So right now they have several hours. So then the question that comes up right away is, how do we not run out when we have so little material on the factory floor? So here's the golden key. We touched on this earlier, but the golden key to not having a lot of material and not running out is this short delivery cycle. Remember the 37 minutes?
Yeah.
That's how they accomplish that. So our current thinking is that cycle time, the delivery cycle time, should be a fraction of the inventory quantity, and that fraction should be between 4 to 6 to 8 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 8 to 1 at Toyota, so that would be a little over 4 hours, right?
And what we teach in class is that you should start at 4 to 1. So don't be too ambitious when you get started. The overall turns 15 to 20, which is not bad, but that is per month. So again, we're not telling you this to tell you there's a party and you have not been invited. Is to tell you that over time, 20 some years as these folks go, with a culture of continuous improvement, you will get there.
Hey, Carlos, welcome.
Hey, yeah, we have seen. Did you see all the different countries?
No, I just noticed Carlos from El Salvador.
Oh no, I've seen Colombia. Let me
saludos, muchachos.
Saludos, bienvenidos. Hang on a second. Okay. What do we have? Let me have a little digression here. I've seen someone from Windsor. I'm going to assume that's in Canada.
Windsor, Colorado?
I think let's. Oh, I have some.
Colombia.
We have someone from Windsor, Ontario. There you go. Someone from Colombia. Hi, Ramiro. Cristina.
Carlos from
Mexico. Rubén, bienvenido. One of my people there.
Yeah, porteño.
Indeed, porteño. Bienvenidos. Well, thank you for that, and thank you for putting out. Oh, Brazil, bienvenido too.
Juarez.
Oh, yeah, one of your people, Richard. Peru. Yeah, how about that?
Órale.
No, it's not órale. That's Mexico.
Yeah, well, that's right.
Okay, thank you all for being here. So, secret. Now, are we at 9 already?
Yeah.
Oh,
good.
man.
We're running out of time here.
Excellent.
Okay, so respect for people. This is a kind of a big one. In terms of self-secrets, this is one of the more subtle self-secrets. I think, in terms of how they manage their people, how they deal with their people. For example, during the downturn, 2008, their industry dropped in half. The fork truck industry, their business dropped in half. Now, they did have some temporary people at this factory that did get laid off. But no permanent employee at Toyota Material Handling lost their job.
And by the way, they use temp force approximately 10%. And that's it.
Yeah, wasn't huge.
So no layoffs. Now, and they will say this out loud. Did we have to carry a lot of people for a while? Absolutely. But let me tell you that 20 years ago, and they will tell you this with a lot of pride when you come visit with us. There is in the presentation. They will tell you with a lot of pride that 20 years ago, Bienvenue.
Yeah, how
20 years ago, they were number 6 in the market. Today they're number 1, and they did that by being ready after the last 2 recessions, 2001 and 2008, and they were first off the gate. And well, right now they are by far number 1. By the way, we've been with them how many now? 6 years?
6 years. Yeah.
6 years. And I don't know how many you know, but I know of one person they hired from the outside. They brought from the outside.
Yeah,
right.
It's rare. Now, when they hire from the outside too, these people go through an extensive enculturation kind of training, months of just getting enculturated into the Toyota way, basically, by working in different areas, by before they even start their full-time responsibilities. So that's pretty interesting.
And also the Kaizen culture. I mean, needless to say, that is really what the lifeblood of how they live, and everybody on the floor participates in continuous improvement.
Right, and people are trained in what we're calling core values. So we have an interesting case history to share with you. Core values that people are taught.
Absolutely. See, this is what your core values should look like. Right? Yeah, exactly. And you know that there's a punchline behind this, because these core values came from Enron. See when words mean nothing, right? We were just remembering this, looking at this morning, imagining Jeffrey Skilling laughing, right? Looking at each other around the conference room table, go, oh, I have a good one. Listen to this one. I have a really, really funny one. Integrity, right? And words mean nothing unless you put action behind it. And look how can almost ethereal their core values look like.
This is a sign in the lobby.
Yeah, and sorry for the low quality of the picture, but we took this picture. Was it us or was it?
No, I took it
right?
with my phone a few weeks ago.
Yeah, we took this picture because we thought, look how ethereal these things look, and how some way, somehow they're able to turn this into practical, everyday tasks and things they do. Be faithful to your duties. Be ahead of the times. Be practical. Be kind. Be humble. I mean, this reminds me of Google, do no evil.
Well, I was standing next to a student when we were looking at this sign, and he said, is this a factory or are we in church?
Are we in church? We are the Church of Lean, he said. Yeah. So the values, absolutely, but you have to practice them from the top. They have to see that continuous improvement, Kaizen, is something we practice from the top.
Yeah, and be kind and generous. One of the principles has certainly been extended to us. Right, the fact that they're kind to let us in and present these workshops there has just been great. All right, so some case histories. How's our time? 11:48. So we're doing well. So in terms of the material handling department, some of the principles that we've seen, talking about the execution of this system. Operators have to take a card out of a box, out of a bin, right? When they consume the first piece, and they put it in a collection box. So it's nearby. They're not walking around, but they are required to take a card out of a box, out of a bin, and put it in a collection box. So they are asked to do that. Not too much more. So we're not asking operators to do a lot of material handling, actually. But we are asking them to be, or they are asking them to be engaged, right? Engaged in the material delivery process. And this is a challenge we've had in some hospital scenarios, right? Just asking for something as simple as that.
Absolutely right. For those of you in the hospital business, a couple of things to consider. First, if you're looking for money to save, it's in materials. Your inventory turns in the operating room are probably 0.2 guaranteed. And you really have to think very hard and sit down with the clinicians to see how much they're willing to do. We have we have interesting stories to tell about the challenges of getting people to take a Kanban card and putting it in a bin. And I'm not talking about, don't think that I'm going to be bad mouthing nurses or techs here. I'm thinking anesthesiologists, right? And anesthesiology residents that, well, you don't expect me to do this difficult thing to pick up a card and put it here. And you can reason as much as you wish, but if you cannot get people to do their part, you're going to have a challenge, and someone's going to pay the price.
Okay, so they own the operators own the signaling process, right? Because they have to take a card out of a bin and put it in a collection box. The team leader also has to move those cards to a central collection point for the material handler, the tugger driver, to pick them up. So there are some manual efforts required, but not a whole lot. Now, trust but verify. That's a quote from Ronald Reagan, I believe, right?
Yep.
Said, trust but verify the collection of cards. So here's an interesting thing. If that all doesn't happen, right? If the team leader does not collect the cards and put them in a central box, for whatever reason, they have a way of following up and checking on that. And you'll get a phone call. That team leader will get a phone call saying, hey, where are your cards? Because you didn't turn the switch on to indicate the cards were waiting there to be picked up. Now, how often does that happen? Every 37 minutes, if you can believe that. So it's not a big deal, but they are verifying that the system is working. They don't want to make any special trips, right? They want to have the system run like a clock, like a watch.
And when you come to the workshop in May, that's one of the things you're going to see. They refer to the box that is in close proximity to the operator as the child box, and the collection box that the team leaders move the cards to as the parent box, and the material handlers that drive the tuggers pick up from the parent box and collect all those and take them to the they call it the scanning office, where the computer will do the auditing.
Okay, so what else can go wrong? Well, you can lose a card, right? Your dog, you brought your dog to work and your dog ate the Kanban card. So that can happen too. So they have a way of auditing that as well. Now that is more automated. So the computer system, because each card is serialized, knows which cards have been scanned and when. And if a card has not been scanned within a certain number of hours, that raises a red flag. And then they have actual people that go out and track it down. What happened to this card? What happened to this bin? So that's an interesting auditing function that they have semi-automated, meaning someone has to go look for it, but the system raises the red flag if they think they have an issue with losing cards. Okay, so secret 10, putting it all together. So there is a method that they are following. So they have a system, right? They have a management system, and they have procedures based on common sense, but based also on a vision. So this vision of one-by-one production, vision of respect for people, but those principles don't violate common sense. In other words, we don't see them doing something stupid just because their vision statement says...
Because of dogma.
Yeah, dogma, right. One-by-one production, so we're going to deliver washers one at a time.
Exactly.
No.
Focus on material flow. Make sure that you have a system that delivers what is needed, when it's needed, and the quantity needed. Make sure that your operators or your clinicians first have what they need. Once you have that working properly, then productivity will follow. And focus on the basics. Make sure that they have the right quantity, that material is being pulled, that you have a plan for every part. And this sounds like a lot of work, because it is. A plan for every part means understanding the replenishment profile of every single part or every single medical supply that is consumed. A proper containerization plan. Make sure that you don't have a container of every size and every color. You need to focus on standardizing containers.
Okay, delivery routes are engineered, so they're designed. They're not simply random. Right?
Don't let that happen. They need to be designed using standards. And we actually spend a good chunk of time in class teaching you how to design delivery routes.
Okay, replenishment signals, we talked about that a little bit. Could be a variety of signals. The most common one is a Kanban card, but they have other methodologies for signaling, including sequencing some of the larger parts in this factory, like masts and engines and so on. Conveyance is important. What we see, the tendency today is to move towards tugger-based conveyance for the majority of parts versus fork trucks or conveyors.
Yeah.
So that's what we see for by far most of the parts in this factory are delivered via a tugger.
And as you mature, start to bring the supply chain on board. I would not recommend starting there. Put the house in order, have a reliable, repeatable system, and then you will be able to bring your suppliers on board. We told you a couple of times about the workshop is going to take place in the beautiful city of Columbus, Indiana.
It's the 6th most architecturally significant city in the United States.
Sounds like a sleight of hand by saying it's 6.
Six.
But it's a beautiful, believe it or not, it has some beautiful architecture. And the Toyota plant, they make that available to us. They're, as I said, very generous. We are going to have the workshop in the amphitheater, and then we will be using also the rotunda up front. This workshop that is upcoming is the sister workshop to our mixed model line design. In this case, we are going to start with the line as it existed, and then we're going to supply that line with materials. There will be 2 tours and also 2 QA sessions with managers from Toyota. Also, for those of you who cannot attend, I assume that Pavel, you there in Poland, you may have a bit of a hard time attending the class in May. We ask you to consider our online workshop. It's exactly the same material. Well, you don't get the tours.
Well, Pavel, he's already registered for it.
Oh, he's already.
Yeah, he just has to finish it.
Okay, yeah. Everybody else, please consider the online workshop because we deliver exactly the same material.
Okay, look at this timing. Boy, we are pros.
Oh,
11:57.
yeah. Practice makes perfect. By the way, if you sign up for the workshop until, I believe, Wednesday, we're going to make available to you a discount, a special discount. Please take a look. I think Ian here is publishing the discount code for you. Please go ahead and sign up. We hope to see you in Columbus on May 9th. We will be there ready for you.
Okay, now there's some questions that popped up, like Christina. If you have any questions about this webinar that you'd like us to address, please go ahead and post them here, or just send them to our regular email, and we'll address them as we can.
Well, Christina, you're asking us a question that we mentioned the fact that when we asked how the system works, they politely declined to indicate, but what we do know is that they have SAP, right? And they custom built a Kanban system that takes the Kanban card, scans them, and by looking at their master production schedule, they makes a decision as to whether or not that card should be reprinted or reissued to be picked and delivered, or retained or increased. We do not know what are the specifics of how that works or what the algorithm is. That's why we recommend that you take a look at Loop Supply Systems. They claim to have cracked that code. We do not know what that code is. Yeah. So let's see if we have any other questions. in the next 1 minute. Did we ignore anybody before? Did you mention 12 times a day? Yes, we answered that one. So I think for right now, we're going to say goodbye because we're exactly at 1 hour. And we thank you all for being here. Thank you very much. Please keep attending. Keep giving us your feedback. We love your feedback. We love your ideas. And we will continue doing these webinars to spread the knowledge of mixed model line design and mixed model material management.
Rachel, will this webinar be available to review later? Yes. You should be getting an email later in the day once it's processed, right, and available as a replay.
Yep.
Right.
All right. So with that, let me see if we can turn the camera back on.
Still here.
We're still here.
Wasn't pre-recorded.
It wasn't a robot speaking. It was just a bad accent I have. So thank you all for being here with us. Looking forward to the next time. I think we have one scheduled 2 weeks from now. And look forward to seeing you. We're going to be a little more disciplined about doing these webinars every other week. Look forward to next time. Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you, world.
Thank you, world. Hasta pronto. And we will be in touch. Bye.